Hey there, welcome back, friend. Glad you showed up for another one of these cozy history rambles. Tonight, we're dusting off a seriously forgotten corner of the ancient world, one of those stories that's just kinda humming quietly under the surface, not shouting for attention, but still there if you listen close. So, whether you're curled up with tea, hiding under a mountain of blankets, or just letting my voice fill the background while you doze, thanks for letting me tag along for the evening. Quick question before we really dive in, where are you tuning in from? Is it morning for you? Sun barely peeking through? Or are you like me, surrounded by the hush of nighttime, everyone else asleep and the world feeling just a little softer? If these gentle time travel stories help you unwind, I'd totally appreciate a subscribe. There's a ton more weird and wonderful trips waiting for us past the edge of dreamland.so. Let's talk about the Romans. They weren't messing around when it came to keeping their empire glued together. Loyalty? They demanded it, full stop, from every last person. Didn't matter if you were mopping the Senate floor or running the whole show. They had these oaths. Break one, and you weren't just breaking a rule, you were basically giving Rome the middle finger. And Rome did not take that lightly. Now, treason, that's a word that packed a punch back then. Like, today it just sounds like a legal drama, but for them, it was pure doom. We're talking about a label that could strip your soul bare, get hit with a treason charge, and you weren't just in trouble. You were basically turned into the ultimate villain, public enemy number one, the guy who spat on everything Rome thought it stood for. But what actually counted as treason? That's where it gets wild. The rules were so broad it was almost a joke. You could be nailed for all kinds of stuff, plotting against the emperor, sure, but sometimes just saying something offhand, or cracking a joke about the wrong guy, or writing the wrong letter to the wrong person, that was enough for the state to come crashing down on you. And trust me, they didn't do gentle. The Roman justice machine, man, it was scary. Accusations could come from literally anywhere. Your neighbor, your own kid, heck, your own slave. Rome encouraged it. Two snitches got rewards, not stitches. So everyone was side-eyeing everyone, weighing every word, wondering if their best friend was going to turn them in for a few coins. Once someone pointed the finger, things moved fast, and not in a good way. Forget innocent until proven guilty. Rome didn't care much for that. Evidence could be thin as a single strand of hair, and confessions? Oh, they'd get one, all right, even if they had to torture it out of you. And let's just say Roman interrogators had a whole menu of nasty tricks: racks, wheels, burning metal, you name it. They weren't above breaking you, body and mind. If you were a slave, though, man, it was even worse. Roman law literally said a slave's word only mattered if they were screaming it out under torture. The logic? They figured slaves would always lie to save their own skin unless pain forced the truth out. So, yeah, didn't matter if you were innocent or guilty, you were getting the full treatment either way. Punishments? Oh, Rome was creative. For smaller acts, you might just get exiled. Sounds kinda chill, right? Nah, not really. You'd lose your citizenship, your stuff, and you'd be dumped in some far-off backwater, never allowed to come home again. That was a living death, honestly, cut off from everyone and everything that made life matter. But if you really ticked them off, exile was just the beginning. There was this thing, aqua ignis interdictio, basically a ban on water and fire. No one could help you, feed you, or even let you inside. You were a ghost, invisible, just wandering the wilds, until you vanished for good. And if you crossed the ultimate line, death. But even there, Rome had a flair for the dramatic. High rollers, fancy senators, and the like, maybe they'd get a quick beheading, or even be allowed to off themselves, weird thing to call a privilege. But hey, Rome. Everyone else? Not so lucky. And that's where things really start to get dark. But hey, history isn't always a warm hug, right? Sometimes it's a cold splash of water in the face. Anyway, let me know where you're listening from, and if you want more of these wild rides through the past, hit that subscribe. Trust me, we're just getting started. Honestly, if you were unlucky enough to be tossed aside as unworthy, things could get way worse. Think next level nightmare fuel. Crucifixion, for example, was the Romans' favorite brand of horror, saved for the bottom rung traitors. They'd literally nail you to a chunk of wood and just leave you hanging sometimes for days while you slowly wasted away under the blazing sun or freezing rain. Not exactly a quick exit. The whole point wasn't just to punish you, but to turn you into a billboard for everyone else. Mess with us, and this is your future. these public executions, they were like gruesome theater, staged to hammer home just how much control the state had, and how little mercy you could expect if you screwed up. Man, if you thought breaking the rules in Rome just got you a slap on the wrist, think again. Step out of line and bam, you're dragged through the streets, your dirty laundry aired for everyone and their grandma, and then you meet your end in the most dramatic, public way possible. It's like the world's worst reality show, and the audience? Bloodthirsty mobs eating it up. Everybody gets a reminder. Mess with Rome, and you don't just pay. You pay in style, but honestly, the punishment didn't stop with you. Oh no. Your whole family got sucked into the black hole of retribution. Roman law had this thing, mistas, which basically meant that if you committed treason, your bloodline was screwed. Kids lost their inheritance. Wives got the boot and a heap of shame. And your family name? Poof, erased like a bad tweet. The message was loud and clear: betray the empire, and your ghost will have company in misery for generations. And as the emperors got more power hungry, the definition of treason just kept ballooning. Didn't bow low enough? Didn't burn incense for the emperor? Accidentally owned a scroll with the wrong vibes? Death sentence. The emperor was so holy that even a sideways glance could be spun as blasphemy. Senators, who used to be the big shots, turned into brown nosers, tripping over each other to prove who loved the emperor most. One wrong move, and not just your life, but your whole circle's lives, were toast. Here's where it gets real gross. Rome basically invented the snitch economy. Professional tattletales delatores made a living accusing people of treason. If you got someone busted, you scored a chunk of their stuff. Talk about incentive for backstabbing. Suddenly, nobody trusts anybody. Your best friend might turn you in for a quick buck. Your own brother? Same deal. The paranoia? Off the charts. And Rome didn't just kill you, they tried to erase you. Literally. Damnatio memoriae. Your name gouged out of stone, your face scraped off statues, history books acting like you never existed. That's a special kind of petty, honestly. And if you survived, exiled to some rock in the sea, locked away in a hole, or worked to death in the mines. Even after sentencing, the suffering just kept going, dragging your loved ones down with you, kids sold, spouse remarried to some loyal citizen. The whole thing was engineered so the pain and shame would ripple out, way past your last breath. Yeah, as we wrap up this stroll through Rome's greatest hits of cruelty, don't get it twisted. This wasn't just random evil for kicks. It was cold, calculated policy, all about keeping the empire stitched together by fear. Every crucifixion, exile, erasure, they all served the same purpose. Makes you wonder, doesn't it, how far people will go to keep control. Even now, it's hard not to shudder at how effective and how monstrous that system really was. Can't really deny it. Like, for ages, Rome just kept things locked down. Sure, they could be ruthless to put it mildly, but all that iron-fisted control, it weirdly set the stage for some of the best art, wild philosophy, and just, I dunno, human greatness in general. That's the kicker with Rome. Out of all that blood and discipline came beauty and genius. It's almost nuts, isn't it? And those punishments from back then still kinda haunt us. Treason's still one of the biggest, baddest crimes you can get slapped with today. The whole fight between keeping everyone safe and just letting people do their thing. Still a hot mess in politics now, if we're being honest. Peeking at how the Romans wrestled with this stuff, it's like looking straight at the old school version of our own debates about freedom and order, the group versus the individual. So, hey, next time you're lying in bed, brain buzzing, imagine wandering those epic marble halls, senators strutting around in their togas, whispering secrets and plotting like, were they any different from our politicians now? Maybe less Twitter, more drama. Man, just picture it, slaves dragging their chains, emperors lounging on their gold-plated thrones, both feeling the full, crushing weight of history pushing down on these ancient stones. This is the place where the fate of entire empires hung in the balance, and the price of a single act of betrayal was paid in blood and tears. Down in the shadows of the Palatine Hill, where emperors used to strut around like peacocks, the ghosts of snitches and traitors still hang around. Ugly stories, honestly, but they're the kind that slap you in the face with how shaky loyalty really is and how god-awful it was to cross someone with absolute power. These lessons, they're not just old scribbles in history books. Nah, they're literally carved into the stone and sealed with blood, still screaming at us across the centuries about how messy power, justice, and loyalty can get. Alright, rest up. Tomorrow, we're diving even deeper into this Roman nightmare. We'll poke around in the twisted punishments Rome saved for traitors. Trust me, it only gets weirder and darker from here. But for now, let those ancient voices echo in your head as you crash for the night, and get ready for more secrets from the Roman underworld. So, picking up where we left off, let's get into the real meat of Roman treason law. Honestly, the Romans were next level, not just because they were brutal, but because they were freaking evil geniuses when it came to psychological warfare. They got their way before modern dictatorships did. The trick wasn't just the punishment, it was the dread, the paranoia, the who's next. That oozed into every crack of society. Take Marcus Flavius, just some middle management type. In the imperial bureaucracy during Domitian's reign, the poor guy barely muttered a complaint about the emperor's latest masterpiece at a dinner party, and boom, next thing he knows, he's hauled in front of a tribunal. The so-called evidence? One dinner guest, bribed with a tax cut for selling Flavius out. No dramatic public execution, nothing flashy. Instead, the Romans went for something way nastier. They stripped Flavius of his citizenship, stole everything he owned, and shipped him off to work in the Sardinian mines. But here's the kicker. They kept him alive long enough to make sure everyone heard the story. Every clerk, every scribe, every pencil pusher suddenly started watching their own backs, all because of a single careless comment over cheap wine. That was the Roman master plan, a punishment system that was out in the open but also a total mystery. You knew the rules existed, but you never knew if you'd already broken one. So people started policing themselves, second-guessing every word, every look, every friendship, just in case someone was listening. The fear wasn't just personal, it was contagious. Rome basically invented collective trauma. Look at the Antonius family under Nero. The dad, Lucius Antonius, got accused of plotting against the emperor, and suddenly the whole family's dragged into the pit. His wife got forced to testify against him, unless she wanted to watch her kids get executed. The eldest son, panicking, turned on his dad to try and save face. The youngest daughter, not even 17, was married off to some imperial bootlicker to prove the family's loyalty. Even after Lucius was dead and his stuff was all confiscated, the damage kept rippling through the family for years. Every move they made was suspect, every conversation a potential death sentence. They were Romans, sure, but not Roman enough. Branded for life, this poison seeped into the heart of Roman society. They used to brag about fides, good faith, and pietas, duty to family and state. But when anyone could be an informant, what's the point? When your own family might rat you out to save their skins, how do you even trust anyone? Rome's greatest strength, its sense of community and duty, got twisted into a tool for control. Pretty bleak, right? Oh man, the economic fallout? Brutal. Roman business wasn't just about coin and contracts, it basically ran on who you knew and whether people believed you were legit. Merchants did deals on the strength of a handshake and a nod. But suddenly, boom, anyone could get slapped with a treason charge just because of some sketchy acquaintance. Trust? Out the window. Everybody got paranoid. Trade slowed to a crawl. Nobody wanted to risk new partnerships and innovation. Forget it. The whole vibe shifted from let's build an empire to keep your head down and don't talk to anyone. Worst part? The whole thing started frying people's brains. Seriously, it's like the birth of learned helplessness. Folks realized it didn't matter how loyal or squeaky clean they were. Some random accusation could end them. Anyway, total mood killer for ambition, you know? Man, the Romans really had paranoia down to an art form. People got so used to being watched, so sure any resistance was a death wish, that they just went with the flow. Honestly, half the time, it wasn't about loving the emperor, it was about not wanting to end up in some dungeon with your head on a spike. And then came the whole circus of performative loyalty. You didn't just need to love the emperor, you had to look like you loved him more than your neighbor did, or else. Folks started naming their kids after the royal family. Imagine a whole kindergarten of mini Neros running around, building statues, throwing over the top parties, anything to prove they were emperor's #1 fan. But here's the kicker. The more over the top these displays got, the more dangerous it was. If you slipped up or just didn't seem quite enthusiastic enough, give a small donation at the emperor's shindig. People whisper you're plotting something. Go too big? Now you're covering for something. No way to win. And the spying, oh boy. The Romans basically invented the neighborhood snitch. Sure, some were on the payroll, but way more were just regular people, roped in by threats, bribes, or just plain old grudges. Your slave might rat you out for a ticket to freedom. Owe someone money? Maybe you'll trade them for a clean slate. Even people who seemed totally above suspicion were in on it: a senator's wife, a respected soldier, your business partner. Nobody was off limits, and that's what made it so twisted. You never knew who was listening, or who'd sell you out for a pat on the back. So yeah, Romans ended up freaked out all the time, even in their own homes. Family dinners, private gardens, even pillow talk, nothing was safe. Love notes could get you executed if someone decided your poetry was code for down with the emperor. Even keeping your mouth shut was suspicious. Why so quiet, huh? Got something to hide? People started losing it. Anxiety, insomnia, full-blown paranoia. You get stories about folks obsessively monitoring themselves and everyone around them, trying to catch any whiff of treason before someone else did. Some just noped out of public life, running off to the countryside to hide. But guess what? That just made you look fishier. Why aren't you at the festival? Dodging jury duty? What are you plotting out there, farmer? Others buried themselves in rules, hoping if they just ticked every box, they'd be safe. Joke's on them, the treason. Laws were so vague, you could be loyal today and a traitor tomorrow, depending on which way the emperor's mood swung. The most heartbreaking, the true believers, the ones who actually bought in, loved the system, did everything right, and still got stomped by the machine. Take poor Marcus Tullus Cicero the Younger, grandson of the famous Cicero, but unlike Grandpa, he's a die-hard, imperial guy. Served the emperors, gave them money, wrote them love letters, well, not literally, but close. Then bam, some fake letter pops up accusing him of bad-mouthing Tiberius. Suddenly, he's under investigation, stuck in limbo for months while everyone ghosts him. You can practically hear the guy's faith in everything crumble. It wasn't just about physical demon. After all that, his so-called friends bailed on him like rats jumping ship. His family? Basically living on edge 24/7, even after the charges got tossed because yeah, the forgery came out. But good luck undoing that kind of damage. Cicero wasn't the same guy after. He found out the hard way that loyalty means squat sometimes, innocence won't save your skin, and the very system he'd busted his ass for could turn around and bite him whenever it felt like it. And honestly, the fallout didn't stop with him. When you see someone upstanding get shredded over made-up crap, you get the memo. Nobody's untouchable. Paranoia spreads, trust dries up, and suddenly even basic relationships feel sketchy. The whole vibe of society gets toxic. And those big Roman ideals, honor, duty, courage, all that stuff, yeah, they start looking like a joke. Anger, the whole thing was a psychological meat grinder. Minefield. Seriously, one wrong move, hell, even just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and your honor could turn on you like a rabid chihuahua. You get the sense that, after a while, nobody actually knew what real honor looked like anymore. It was all smoke and mirrors, performative loyalty, people putting on a show just to dodge suspicion. The old virtues? Yeah, they didn't just erode, they got weaponized, twisted into something dark. And don't even get me started on duty, used to mean doing the right thing for Rome, right? Suddenly, it's a straitjacket. If your duties to the emperor clash with your duties to, say, your family or your conscience, well, tough luck. Pick wrong, and you're out. Or worse. Courage? That was a joke. You had to be brave to keep your mouth shut, not to speak out. Bravery got you noticed, and in a world where getting noticed meant getting denounced, it was way safer to just keep your head down and hope nobody remembered your name. The craziest part, people adapted. Humans are good at that, for better or worse. Paranoia became a way of life. Folks learned the rules of this sick little game: who to trust, almost nobody, what to say, not much, and when to disappear into the background. The treason laws wormed their way into daily life until fear was just the air everyone breathed. It didn't even feel strange after a while. That's what's so chilling. Honestly, it's like watching a horror movie in slow motion, society pretending everything's normal while the soul rots from the inside. Rome kept its ceremonies and its marble statues and its fancy titles, but the meaning behind it all, gone. Just empty shells, going through the motions while everyone's looking over their shoulder. And Rome wasn't the last to pull this trick. You see it echoed in every regime. That turns people against each other, that makes loyalty a weapon and trust a liability. The Stasi, the KGB, modern surveillance states it's all there, just with shinier tech. So yeah, the legacy of the Roman treason system isn't just about a bunch of dead emperors and dusty laws. It's this nasty little lesson about how easy it is to hollow out a civilization from the inside, all while keeping up appearances. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many societies are just one good scare away from sliding down that same slope? Next up, I'll get into the nuts and bolts, the nuts and the togas, the secret informants, the official rituals, and all the other weird details that made this psychological machinery tick. For now though, let's just sit with that ugly truth. Even the most civilized places can turn monstrous if you twist the right screws. Rome was just a human. Talk about living in a constant episode of Big Brother, ancient Rome. Folks weren't out there trying to actually do what was right, they were just sweating bullets over what looked right to everyone else, especially the professional loyalty police. Imagine you're a senator. Used to be. You could step up, take a stand for something unpopular, maybe even feel kinda smug about your integrity. Now, you'd be thinking, is this gonna get me labeled a traitor? Not exactly the vibe for bold leadership, huh? Same deal for the generals. Used to be, if some battle plan was garbage, you'd call it out. But suddenly, being real about a bad strategy could make you look like you're plotting against the emperor. Fun. It got so nuts that even families weren't safe. Romans loved to brag about their tight family bonds, dads and sons, wives and husbands, all that wholesome stuff. But with these crazy treason laws, even those relationships started to feel like ticking time bombs. Suddenly, the people closest to you could be the ones who got you in trouble. Talk about trust issues. A D of the curve. Suspicion, man. Just picture the head trip a Roman dad went through if he caught his kid mouthing off about the emperor. Does he snitch on his own flesh and blood to keep his own neck and the rest of the family off the chopping block? Does he keep his mouth shut and hope no one finds out, risking everyone if they do? Maybe he tries to warn his son, but then he's up to his eyeballs in the whole treason mess too. There's no good way out. No matter what, he's betraying something, either Rome or his own kid. The regime wasn't dumb. They knew, if you make people choose between loyalty to family and loyalty to the state, you've got them right where you want them, stuck, guilty, and constantly looking over their shoulder. Here's the thing, a society full of people tangled up in their own guilt and fear, way easier to control than a bunch of self-righteous, I'm on the side of truth types. And honestly, the most twisted part of the whole setup was how it made any kind of resistance look not just risky, but downright selfish. If standing up for your principles means you might doom your whole family, your friends, maybe even the maid and the guy who sells you olives, well, resisting starts to look less like bravery and more like being a self-centered idiot. The Romans, without knowing the word for it, basically invented societal scale-learned helplessness. People figured out real quick that pushing back against the system would only get them and everyone they cared about crushed. After a while, nobody even bothered to fantasize about resisting. Why waste the mental energy? The price was just too high. That's how you end up with a senatorial class once full of swagger, pride, and fierce debate suddenly turned into a herd of spineless yes-men. These weren't cowards, not by a long shot. Some of them had swords, scars, law degrees, brains to burn, but the treason laws just chipped away at their guts, little by little, year after year. First you learn to bite your tongue when you disagree. Then you nod along, maybe fake a smile. Eventually, you're out there loudly cheering for stuff you secretly hate. And before too long, you don't even have to fake it, your brain rewires itself, just to make the discomfort go away. The alternative? Living with that gnawing, endless awareness that you've sold out. Trust me, nobody's got the stomach for that forever. This mind melt didn't just wreck politics. It nuked Roman culture and intellect too. Rome used to thrive on debate. Their courts were all about verbal duels. Politics was a gladiator pit of ideas and philosophers. They lived to poke holes in each other's logic. But once those treason laws kicked in, curiosity became a liability. Ask the wrong question about the emperor, and you're plotting. Come up with a new theory? Maybe you're criticizing the way things are. Heck, even history professors had to watch their backs draw the wrong parallel, and suddenly you're comparing the emperor to some dead tyrant. So what happened? Everyone started playing it safe. Scholars buried themselves in dull, technical stuff. Writers, mythology, and fairy tales, no risky social commentary. Philosophers disappeared into navel gazing and abstract nonsense. The whole place froze over intellectually. And this wasn't just some sad bookworm problem. The same creativity and sharp thinking that built Rome's armies and bureaucracies, gone, sacrificed for short-term control. The empire started eating its own brain just to keep the emperor happy. And let's not forget the manufactured consent trick. Rome was all over that. Loyalty parades, public celebrations, monuments everywhere. If you didn't show up and clap loud enough, someone might rat you out. People were expected to tattle if their neighbor wasn't enthusiastic enough about the emperor's new statue. The result? On the surface, everyone looks thrilled to be part of the empire. Underneath, not so much. But when all you see is cheerleading, it messes with your head. You start to wonder if maybe you're the only one who isn't actually on board. That's the real genius or evil of it all, man. When everyone around you seems to be waving the same flag and cheering for the government, you start second-guessing yourself real quick. Like, am I just nuts for thinking this is all messed up? Maybe I'm the only one side-eyeing the whole situation. It gets to the point where you're not even sure if your doubts are legit or if you're just being a pain in the ass for no reason. The Romans? Oh, they were absolute pros at this mind game. Way ahead of their time, honestly. What scholars now call preference falsification, basically, people faking support and hiding what they really think. That was happening all over the place. Folks learned to put on a good show, nod along, keep their real feelings under wraps. So eventually, nobody had a clue what anyone else actually believed about the whole regime. Good luck trying to organize any kind of rebellion when everyone's playing poker with their opinions. And here's the kicker. The Romans weren't just content with that surface-level stuff. Nope. They knew how to mess with your head even deeper. Psychological warfare before it was cool, you know?